Hey guys, welcome to Handhelds United, and today we have quite a crazy episode for you guys. But before we do that, I have, of course, my amazing panel with me. Guys, please introduce yourselves. Start Game Tech Talk. Clef, what's up, guys?
Hey yo, yokoso, which means welcome or welcome back if you're new.
Hey, gosh, I'm even worse. Sorry.
Wait, one of these days these will get correct. Go ahead, reintroduce yourself.
And Henster, by the way.
Let us turn our hands back to Clef, who has an amazing topic for us tonight.
Hey guys, so okay, crazy episode, crazy video today. Some of you may have seen it. If you haven't, oh boy, you're in for a surprise. There has been a leak on video cards and originating from elsewhere. You know, it's all on the article. But that being said, there is apparently a GPD device that sports a Strix Halo APU in it. From what I can read here, a Max Plus 395. Guys, do you think this is really a device made by GPD?
Shut up and take my money. No, I don't have enough money for that. Clearly, definitely not. Don't have enough money. I don't know. I've never heard of this leaker before. From X on HXL. I'm just not that familiar with that. So it's really hard for me to say for sure, but Handstern was the one that brought this to my attention. So I don't know. Do you know more about this, Handstern?
I don't really know more about it. I just happened to stumble across it. I mean, I want to believe it. I mean, I don't see it not being a possibility.
Cue the X-Files music.
But
yeah.
I mean, it's just it's a picture of something, you know. Yeah, I mean, I want to believe it, but I mean, and it's very possible that anybody could be prototyping something, but whether or not this has legs, I mean, we'll see.
That's kind of where my mind is. I think this is just someone prototyping, maybe GPD themselves, maybe an engineer at GPD. But to me, it's wild to think. And I know that there's been discussions. Fox brought it up. I'm pretty sure other creators as well brought it up as a possibility. And don't get me wrong, I want to believe that this could be possible. But having had some hands-on experience with the chip, it's going to be pretty challenging, but at least based off of the picture that we can see here, and if we kind of go over it, it seems to be a GPD Win 4-like kind of format. It doesn't seem to have a sliding screen, but you know, according to what we see on screen, it seems to be rocking a pretty beefy APU, or maybe it's just moonlight. Guys, have we thought about that?
Plot twist. Plot twist. We've all been had. It is actually just streaming some guy's 5090 desktop.
All right. Now, here's the big question, though, because based off of probably the most prominent and talked about piece of hardware currently available that has this chip is the Flow Z13. And if you've seen videos, you'll know how challenging it can be to work within the parameters that ASUS has set for the device. And so with all that in mind, with price that the Flow Z13 costs, the power profile, the heat, the battery, I don't want to say issues because they're not battery issues considering all the juice that the device takes. But you know, it's hard to run on batteries. And so do you guys, knowing what you know, do you think, beyond like just the ludicrous thought of this being a thing, do you think it's actually feasible?
Yeah, I mean, I had speculated on this before when those videos had come out, and you know, not to call it any kind of creators, but I was saying that the die itself, like the APU itself, is significantly larger than that of the HX370 that we already have in a number of Chinese handhelds like those in GPD and also 1X Player and so on. The thing is besides the die itself, which is, if I'm not mistaken, it's like close to a 33% larger. That means you would have to retool the entire board, the entire thermal design. Like that, barring that potential issue, I was just looking this up, and the rated TDP of that chip, the AI Max 395, is actually 45 watts to 120 watts, which means it would be so starved at, you know, our typical handheld range of, let's say, sometimes people like to go down as low as like, you know, 7 or 8, like it would just be completely choking on itself. Even if it was pushed down to like 15 would be my guess. I was also just looking up like other ones. You know, unfortunately, AMD has gone the way of naming shenanigans. And when you look at things like the AI Max 385, that still has the same TDP profile. And so unless they're doing some crazy customizations and reworking of the voltage requirements in the BIOS, which I don't even think is probably possible, otherwise AMD would have likely had this set. It doesn't seem realistic just based on that kind of thermal design. But I don't know. I know Handstern really is looking for an upgrade and waiting for a big upgrade. Would this be a big upgrade for you? Like, would you just throw your Z2 Extreme in the trash if you could get one of these in a handheld?
Yeah, probably. I would. I mean, I shied away from, the Z13 and, price mainly, but I mean, if it's in an actual more portable, although it's going to be something chonky, right? I mean, right now, the only thing we've really seen, 45 watts is feasible, right? I mean, if we have that, because, we got things like the iNeo Queen, we got, I think something else hits at least 45, doesn't it?
That thing right below your screen there.
Oh, mine doesn't SPL at 45.
Oh no!
I think
in the trash it goes.
I want to say I think the X's turbo mode is somewhere closer to that 45, but it's going to be it's going to be something chunky, right? It's got to be.
And I want to emphasize, I'm so glad that you said that, because on the picture we see kind of, from the front, and in my mind, the only way that I can think of this as being feasible in any capacity is if it is monster thick. And I don't know how they'd work some kind of maybe double stack board or just a giant battery, because it's one thing to have the board, it's one thing to have the chip, deal with the heat, but then like what kind of battery would we even have on the form factor of a Win 4? They'd have to stack cells on top of each other. Otherwise, we'll have this running for like 15 minutes. I mean, that would not make sense, right? So I'm so glad you mentioned that it has to be chunky, and considerably so. And only then, if it is, and maybe like increase the size a little bit, maybe they could physically make it work within a handheld kind of format. But the thing is, if that was to release, I'd genuinely be excited for it, right? Because we don't really have a whole lot of options with that chip to begin with. And it still would be more portable than a Flow Z13. But when we think of a Flow Z13, ASUS really, I think they knew what they were doing with choosing that form factor to be able to fit that chip. And even then they had to compromise so much, specifically on battery. Anyways, but there's I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely right about that with the Z13. I was just going to add that I think the only devices that we have currently that is in a relative form factor or size is probably the X1 or the X1 Pro for One X player, being a 10.95 inch screen, right? It'd probably have to be thicker. And then I guess like the WinMax 2, but can you imagine like how big that thing would have to be too, right? So yeah, I mean, we don't really know from the picture that we got from the leaker, but maybe the reason why they're saying that it's not feasible is because the speculated devices, which is that the Win 4 is just way too small for that type of thing. Like it has to be like way bigger. But then again, we don't actually know what that device is. We don't even know like the size of that panel or anything like that. I guess some detectives could do some kind of sleuthing and try to find something out.
Or I almost dislocated my shoulder just now to grab this guy. You guys know what this is?
Tab 4.
This is the Minisforum V3.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Yes.
I guess
yes.
Very close to the Flow Z13 kind of form factor, but I don't know. Maybe Minisforum could upgrade that model and try to tackle on that thing as well. Price was
It's funny that you mentioned that. The V3, because the V3 doesn't have the 8840U version anymore, and as far as I know, they did not release an HX370 to like every other company did release as well. All they have is the V3 SE, which is the 7735U, which is essentially just a rebadged 6800U, I think, with the 680M. Again, AMD with their lovely names, you know. The decoder ring doesn't work anymore, but
I mean, quite frankly, I probably wouldn't double dip if they were to make an updated model, but no, you're right. They haven't, and I did pay attention. But you know, if you think about it, that is probably the closest to a Flow Z13 that we've seen prior to it. Well, technically there were Flow Z13 before the Minisforum V3, but anyway, you guys know what I mean. So let's talk price. That was brought up. What do you think would the price look like if GPD, Henster, let's go with you. What do you think GPD's price for such a device would be?
You've got to expect at least 25.
This
is where, this has got to be the Achilles heel, right? It's got to be price. I mean, everything else, like we can figure out power, we can figure out cooling, we can figure out all that stuff, but price and making it feasible to even bring to market,
25.
It's going to be at least 25.
Ooh, you went way higher than I would have thought. Okay.
I mean, when you think the Z13 is around 2, I mean, it was like 18, I think was the cheapest.
Yeah. Was it ever that price? It's always like 2,200, 2,300 plus now.
Yeah, and they don't need to sell it. Apparently,
I think it might have been a 380 model instead of a 395 that was like 1,800.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Interesting.
I remember seeing one that was less than 2, but
interesting. Okay.
Most of them, yes, were at least $2,000. So you got to think at least 2,500.
So
I think that's enough. I think that's good speculation.
And
you think so? What are you saying?
They're small and niche enough. I mean, if they get some parts, I mean, somebody will buy it, and they'll make a profit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh no, 100%. That I agree with you.
They might do it as like a boutique sort of. It's going to be somebody boutique, you know, if somebody's going to do it.
All right, Ionio, you're on notice now. I mean,
wait, Gamers Generation. I also want to know your take on price.
Oh, 99. I mean, I think Handstern's guess is a pretty good one. At least 2,000. If I would have to guess, like if we're going to assume that ASUS is making very little on the Z13, that it's more of like a Halo flagship product. I have like two strong thoughts about that. One, what are you doing, ASUS? Why are you not marketing that more? Because
you don't need to.
Well, this is what I mean. Maybe it's because they can't allocate the stock for it. Is the thing though. They're not making enough silicon for it, and that's why, like AMD is not seeding them the chips. And if AMD is not seeding ASUS the chips, like let's be honest, what hope does GPD or one of these other smaller companies have to get the chips themselves, right? And so they're not going to get a favorable, price per batch. Whatever that batch size is. Usually, if I'm not mistaken, it's typically like at least like 500 or 1,000. But in that case, like, I mean, you got to imagine that they're not going to be able to beat the pricing of a big company like ASUS, right? That has like the global reach. So even if we were optimistic, I would say that like even 1,500 would be like too low. Would be my guess. Like we're already seeing like HX370s like get like bumping up against that.
Well,
price,
mostly by Ionio, yes, Ionio is Ionio, right?
Yes, you're right. You're right. But I mean, if you bump up the specs to if you bump up the specs to 64 gigs of RAM and like 4 terabytes of storage, I know those are like kind of like maxed out ends. Even like something like the One X Player X1 Pro that I was mentioning, that's like I think that's like $1,500-$1,600 with that specification. So if you're gonna put even let's go with what Handstern was saying. Let's go with the lower specs, which has I think the 8040S is what I just looked up. So a lower tier APU than the AI Max 395, but it's the AI Max Pro 380, I think it's called, that has the 8040 in there. Even if we're going to do that, are we then going to only like, are we going to handicap it by having 16 gigs of RAM in there, by having a 1 terabyte like of storage in there? No, that would be ridiculous, right? And so like, how else are they going to keep the cost down? You know, they got to go like all in on all of these dimensions, and there's no way that that's going to come cheap.
I don't know. I feel like 2000 would be the absolute ceiling. I feel like they could hit lower. And I understand where you guys are coming from with ASUS, but they have this MO. It's always, and they've always operated the same. And it's not the first Flow Z13. So right now, ASUS is at that let's make profit kind of, layer of operation. When they introduce a new device to the market, when they're trying to break new grounds, that's when they will cut profit very, very low. We're not there yet anymore. Even the Asus ROG Ally X doesn't follow that modus operandi anymore. So I don't think 2500 is representative of how low Asus could go. If anything, if GPD was to release a device like that, I feel like 1800 would make more sense. Because we're looking at a smaller screen than the Flow Z13. The Flow Z13 also has a lot of engineering to cram everything into a tablet. So if they were to make a Win 4 Lite that's super thick, where most of the design is already made, I feel like they would be able to lower costs down and reach at least for like a entry level with, I want to say 1 terabyte, 64 gigabytes. I think they could hit 18, maybe 1900. Please don't hit 2000, let alone 2500.
Okay.
1999.99.
Yeah, perfect. I'm gonna play your game. But I'm also gonna take Hans Turn's hot take for the night, and that is that even if they could go at that price, like 1800, let's say, I'm gonna say they wouldn't go with that outside of a super early bird or something like that. The reason for that is because GPD, unlike companies like 1xPlayer and INEO in particular, they are much more of a hardware company than they are the other two, because they literally have no software.
True.
You know what I mean? And for that reason alone, there's very little other than the hardware to buy into a GPD product.
Well, here's where I disagree again.
Okay.
But you have a fair point. My take would be that if GPD was really to ever release that device, the goal would be to be able to say we were first. It would be to broadcast their names to the world. It's it's putting that chip for it to grow over time. I think that would be the move for GPD. Maybe it's wild of me to think that they would do that, but if they were to do that, it would be a great move, because for sure, if somehow they are the first company to drop a handheld, like a proper handheld with Max Plus 395 in it, everyone's going to be talking about it for sure, guaranteed. Maybe it's going to run 15 minutes, but still people are going to talk about it.
I mean, they're going to talk about it for like 2 days, I think, because they were the first ones to drop the sliding handheld with the Win 4. Oh, and look, INEO just copied it. Right? Nobody talks about the GPD Win 4 anymore. They were the first to drop the Radeon eGPU in the G1. Oh, but now only people talk about the 1xPlayer G1. I don't think it's worth it for them, even if they could. And maybe that's the reason why it's not feasible, because it just doesn't make sense from a monetary standpoint. Like, maybe if they did like some super ultra limited edition thing, there's only like 50 of them, and then you pay whatever you want, and they're trying to angle into that boutique luxury like direction that INEO was trying to go with, like, being basically an Apple device of the handhelds. Maybe then I would agree with you, but given their history, I feel like it doesn't align. I'd be so happy to be proven wrong, especially about the price, but yeah, I just think
GPD, you know what to do. Prove it wrong. Prove it.
Yeah, go for it.
Next question, guys.
Yes. GPD's real name stands for GG's Poor Decisions. That's what it
is. Wow, shots fired. Okay. Next question about the chip. I mean, price is a very hot topic, as we can see, but how about power profile and heat? Any thoughts? Anything else to throw out there that you guys have?
I think we already kind of discussed this. I mean, just because of the size.
We kind of did. I agree. Just that's why I'm saying anything we want to add to that. Like as far because is there a possibility that somehow AMD has kept working the chip and reworked its power profile and heat management so that what we're seeing in GPD, we're assuming is the same revision as what we have in the Flow Z13 when in fact it's not? Would that be a possibility?
No, not in the same generation and not in the same wafers. No.
Sure.
They would have pushed those generational uplifts to the next generation of chips.
Makes sense. Any thought, Hanstern, before we move to the last question?
I mean, I would say that, I guess power wise and heat, I mean, like we said, Ioneo's got the Queen, that can hit 54. But hitting that 45, that low end of that TDP, right? When this leaked out, I started looking up a bunch of stuff about the Z13. I'm like, okay, we've got, USB-C can do 100 watts. Like, how much power, looking at like battery life. I'm like, what kind of power draw can we get? So I'm just Googling all kinds of stuff. Stumble upon a Reddit forum, and somebody on this Reddit forum mentions this guy. You might know him, CPPC Tech. He's got a video on the Z13 where he's hitting performance mode or whatever, right? And that seems to be kind of like where, like that sweet spot. So, I mean, if we're hitting, that 45, 50 with a 70 watt hour battery, I mean, we're kind of back to, like the earlier days, when we had 40 watt hour batteries, only getting an hour of life. But, I mean, we're getting 3 times the power. We're just paying for it with our time, maybe a little bit.
Well, that's why
I can see somebody doing it for sure.
That's why I was asking Gamers Generation, because to your point, if we had a GPD Win 4 with Max plus 395, those names, and somehow Asus had a pre-cooked BIOS for GPD where it's locked solid at 45 watt TDP, and like you said, we have a 70 watt hour battery in there, we could get approximately an hour's time. And if and only then you plug it, and you can only when you're plugged in, kind of like what Minisforum did with the V3, because they have the exact same thing. You can only unlock it when you're plugged in. So if we were to have something like that in a GPD Win 4 plus Ultra, whatever, but to your point, Gamers Generation, you don't think AMD would be doing something like that, or GPD would, but that's such a great point. They're only hardware; they don't do software, so I wouldn't see GPD like reworking the software like that.
Their BIOSes are pretty bare bones, as are their softwares. But those power profiles are typically written into the APUs themselves. Like what you're saying is not unheard of. It's very much possible in the BIOS to lock the TDP at a maximum of 45 and just let it do whatever it wants below that. We had some older chips like in the 6800U, which was similar to that. Like you could push up past like 50 watts. You would literally just be burning batteries and probably burning your hands at that point. But it's very much like in the old days where you could overclock your GPU in your full size tower just to make yourself a space heater. You could very much do that. Could they make this possible in the APU as well? Yeah, very much so. I think that's possible, assuming the management of the heat is fine when it's on portable mode, and as long as it has enough airflow to not just completely cook itself long term. But I mean, I still don't think it, like as Hanstern had said, I think the primary limitation is going to be price. I think that's first and foremost, even if they can get it into a sizable package. So believe me though, like, yeah, I would love to see this thing inside of, like a 1X Player X1 Pro. That would be like the new all-in-one device for me, because I said this before, and like, I'll say that hot take again. The Z13 is not a handheld. It's a convertible laptop. You can put the controllers on it if you want. That's not a handheld. It's kind of big. You can definitely make it work, but I do think that like the X1 Pro being just slightly smaller does that a little bit better. You know, there's going to be things that the Z13 does better. Like the Z13 is going to be productivity better for sure. Probably straight media consumption better for sure. But like, one thing you don't see people doing when they have the Z13, they're putting the big controllers on it, is like using it like you would be on a train. Because besides the battery life, I mean, you're gonna, like, you know, break your arms holding it like that, right? So
chunky.
Exactly.
Well, and not that I want to reiterate on that, but if we look at the composition of the picture, it's very possible that the, you know, Win 4 leak is plugged in, number one, and the cable seems to be very high compared to whatever is sitting behind. So it would be like a super massive chunk piece of unit. Like we're talking, you know, like thicker than a Big Mac. No, maybe not, but you know, it's close to. So yeah, we mentioned Big Macs open here, guys. So we kind of talked about you know, what kind of device could potentially have that kind of chip as well, the X1, X1 Pro, maybe a Minisforum V3. But let's say we remove all the limit. I know it makes no sense, but you know, play with me for a second.
The Win Max 2 could definitely do it. I agree. Because you're imagining that they could put the entire chip and everything else in the bottom chassis, right? Because it's essentially just a mini laptop, right? And you know, they could save room for other things where the display is. But the problem with that is, like, it's not ergonomic. And I was memeing on the Z13, but that thing is absolutely not a handheld. It's a mini laptop that you're trying to use as a hand.
Maybe that's why One X Player made the G1. It's because they knew that this was coming. They wanted a new form factor.
I mean, then that 1 hour of battery life, as Handstern had said, maybe less is going to be very much true for that. Doesn't that thing have like a 55 watt hour battery? Yeah, you're going to be lucky if you get it. You're going to be lucky if you get an hour out of that.
No, you're not going to get an hour.
Yeah, limits your.
You will.
Battery.
Okay. But here's the question I have for you guys. Let's forget, you know, price, heat, power, all the things that makes this completely hard to wrap our head around.
So we're living in a complete fantasy now. Got it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going fantasy world. If you have one device, one handheld that you'd like to see the Max Plus 395 inserted into, which handheld would that be? Just curious to hear your thoughts.
Handstern. Let's turn our hands to Handstern. He has to tell us first.
Sounds
good.
The 10-cent Sunday Dragon / the Acer Nitro Blaze.
Man, I did that.
Blaze it.
Okay. Blazing fast. But I mean, yeah, it would probably be. It's got to be something with detachable. I mean, for me, because it's going to be a big device. So I mean, I guess if in an ideal world, maybe we somehow get it smaller, right? And I'm doing it with like a Win Mini or something, right? If we want to go super crazy, we're throwing this thing in a Win Mini, right?
Wild.
But no, yeah, I mean, if even coming back down to earth just a little bit, yeah, the X1 11-inch, the potential Nitro Blaze / Sunday Dragon 11-inch. Something like that with detachable keys. Maybe a Legion Go Max. Legion Go 2 Max.
Gamers Generation.
Let's get that.
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there in dreamland with Handstern. I actually like the idea of. I wasn't even thinking I was gonna go with X1 Pro. Yeah, like X1 Ultra or X2 Pro or something like that. But I think you're actually onto something with Sunday Dragon. This is not the first time we mention it on this on our Speedcast, and that's because I really do think that this is a really interesting device. And what way to make it even more interesting to have the absolute beast that is the 395 inside there, and that thing would definitely be powerful enough with the 8060S in there to power the 3D in there. Like that would be absolutely nuts.
I gotta say, I like where your mind went, Handstern, when you mentioned the detachable controllers. So Legion Max would definitely be a cool thing. But, since the Manjaro Orange Pi came out of the woodshed, I'm going to say that one. No. But
Let's just
actually,
put in a PS Portal too, then. If we're going with that. Yeah.
Odin 2 Portal with a Max plus
no.
395. That's what I want. No. But definitely, I think Legion Max would be pretty epic. I'd buy that device. And so that is it, guys. Thank you very much for this episode, and make sure to stay tuned for more coverage on all your favorite handhelds, guys. Let's say goodbyes. Peace.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Take care.